Leadership Story Talks, where we discuss the practices that engage, motivate, develop, retain, and attract people to businesses. We'll give you principles and tools based on real-world stories to leverage listening and storytelling to become a better leader and management professional. Leadership Story Talks is produced by Narrative, a company that focuses on personal storytelling for business.
The main word to me that is connected with creating a trust environment is caring. Caring leaders, right? Like, I love a saying that is, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And that for teams is like directly applicable, right? Like, it doesn't matter how wise and knowledgeable your boss is if they don't show like how they care about you. And caring is the main condition to create trust, right? Like, when you know that someone cares about you, what you're going through, like what the situation is, trust is naturally built.
All right, so that was Cesar Keller in episode 95, and talking about care and trust. And we talked a lot about AI technology and how one may be able to lead to the other, but then we also need those human beings to be able to, that we ultimately trust in. So, yeah, what are your thoughts around this?
Well, first, I was inspired about Cesar because I wanted to understand his backstory about why his choice of doing like an employee engagement in an organizational wide solution. So when he used his thoughts about its leadership, it's being caring, it's being able to free people up to enable them to grow, I was a little bit more impressed about he had a mission that was bigger than just let's come up with new tech. So that was very, very positive. However, I'll launch you off in another direction that, as I have always said in my talks, all the tech in the world is not going to help us unless we're intentional. And we use the time it's freed us up to do smart things and intentional things as leaders with our groups and our teams. So it is.
Yeah.
It is what I think at this point. We've seen a lot of innovations over time, but we're still trying to fix our processes and our human interactions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what, my takeaway from that conversation was that he's sort of thinking in 10, 15 years increments. This is where we are now, and we're already talking about things that we may not get to for another 10 or 15 years, right? And then another 10 or 15 years after that. So at this moment in time, what's clear to me is the need for that intentionality that you're talking about. And, we still need those human beings to prompt the AI, to ask the right questions, and also to use it in a way that's, ethical and trustworthy. Because when we talk about leaders needing to show they care about people so that their people will trust them, sounds very obvious, but that doesn't happen a lot. And a lot of times the technology actually gets in the way of that because the human being is kind of removed from people, or the leader is kind of removed from their people, if we use that example. And so it's really about that balance. And that's what I appreciated about our conversation with Cesar is that was a big part of it. How do we balance out the technology with the moments where we actually do really need people? And the thing that came back to me when we talk about, show that you care. I think for a lot of people, it's like, well, I do care, but how do I show it? And I think for us at Narrative, that's where personal storytelling can really come into play, where, if you are open to sharing as a leader your stories with your team about times that weren't so great for you, but that you learned from, that's key, right? You made a mistake, you had a failure of some kind, it wasn't intentional, but then you learned from that. And now you're sharing not just what you learned, not just the solution, but you're also sharing the difficult moment that you went through that was kind of painful for you when you had that failure or made that mistake. That's going to show that you care about people. And that's going to create that trust in return, right? And maybe you'll even hear, as you start to share stories like this, try this out and see what comes back to you. Because in our experience, what comes back to people who do this is that they start to hear stories from others based on the story they just told. And they're hearing in those stories really important information. Sometimes even the best innovations come from those stories. So, but it starts with that willingness to put yourself out there in a way that's not like this, perfect kind of rock of a person that's never made a mistake in their lives.
Absolutely. I'm sure you've experienced when you're coaching, when we have folks and they go right into left brain, robotic, very curated comments. But the real depth of the conversation, or when we pick up nuances or important things about their background that can engage others and also re-energize themselves, is when they relax and
Mm.
they make it a conversation and they make it into a story of real examples, not them being robotic. And I suspect because we're going forward, because I'm thinking like this, like who's writing to me? Is the bot or is an actual human? And I see the benefit of both, but I'd also like the human touch when somebody is willing to have just a general conversation. So I think live is going to be how we teach ourselves to stay live and relevant going forward is going to be very, very important for engagement.
Yeah. And where can we actually bring in tech and AI to sort of support those messages, right? As opposed to create those messages for us, which I think works for certain things, but certainly in these more human interactions, what I'm afraid of is that people are kind of relying on AI to create those heartfelt messages, and that's problematic to me.
I
Yeah,
know. I mean, they help, but we can get a little lazy too and just say, look, take a risk, say a little bit extra to show that you have some skin in the game. But I
yeah,
think leadership is an interesting balance. You want to be careful how you're saying things and what you're saying. You can be a little bit isolated sometimes for the masses, what you think is assumptions. So I think the good leader that is going to be flourishing in this environment is going to be the one who has not just the interest in finding out more what's coming in, but building a team that's helping them dig in and get that information to make sure he or she is staying real and relevant and
yeah,
connected.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so what I'm getting from this is that we really encourage you out there to think about your own stories of moments that were a little bit of a struggle for you, but that you learned from, and keep those in your back pocket for whenever your team and employees need to hear something like that, so that they know that you care and they can trust you. Start with that and see where that takes you. See what you get in return, and then it's really about listening. Listen to what you get, and also listen for the opportunity to tell such a story. Don't tell it just in a void, right?
Hence, there has to be a purpose.
That's right. Exactly.
Oh, it's not a song and dance show. You gotta like just go and make sure you have a good reason and that you're not just using to experiment with people.
Yeah.
So they have to understand your why and that it's authentic and it's not contrived.
Yeah. Yeah. And we are here to help. We're always happy to listen to our listeners and to our followers, and really appreciate everyone tuning into this episode as well. And before we go, I want to remind people to, as always, please go and review this podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to it. That way, it just comes directly into your feed. And also check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com, narrative, N-A-R-A-T-I-V, and of course our website, narativ.com, to find out a lot more and get the support that you need to tell these really important stories that are going to get other people to trust you and follow you. Thank you so much, as always, and thanks, Julienne, for co-hosting once more with me.
Terrific. We'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye.
For more information on the narrative listening and storytelling method and how it can help your business, go to narrative.com.